Hello, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to demonstrate how to put a sleeve on the back of a quilt so that you can slide a curtain rod in it and hang it up on your wall. So let's first look at a curtain rod. All right, this is one that my husband and I both made years ago, and I use this quite often. It's my favorite rod to hang quilts. What we did was, because we custom made it, we went to the hardware store, and in the lumber department they sell those closet rods that they always put in all the closets to hang clothing on. We asked them to cut it a certain length, and it was very inexpensive, probably just a few dollars. And then in the same hardware store I found unfinished finials that just screw on. Now if you're using either one you make or one you purchased, you want to determine if this rod can be, the finial can be removed. If it can be removed, then you only need to measure the rod itself and not the finial. So what you would do is just hang this over, your tape measure over, loosely hang it, all right, to measure approximately how wide your strip of fabric needs to be. And then you would add a couple of inches to it. That way you can remove the finial and slide the rod in through the sleeve and then put the other finial on at the other end. Let's say your finial can't be removed. Then measure the widest part of the finial and then add a few inches to that. You want your sleeve to be slightly loose so that everything slides in and out and you don't tear your sleeve putting it on, taking it on and off, okay? All right, so let me put this aside. Now, to measure the length of your sleeve, you want to measure from the edge of your binding where it is on the back, and then you're going to go over to the other side and measure to here, and that would be the length of your sleeve. And then you would add an inch to that measurement. So overall you're adding an inch to the length and 2 inches to the width. All right, it's always easier to make something smaller than it is to make it bigger. Okay, now let's suppose you're using a really thin cafe rod and you don't want the rod to show, and you want to make what I call a hanging quilt. No one can see how it's up there. So then you would measure over a couple of inches from the edge of your binding. And this is how it's going to work. You would have your rod, this is my pretend rod here, you have it slipped in there, okay, and your hook on the wall is going to be right in here, and your cafe rod rests over it. And the kind of hooks that I use are those big plastic ones with the magic tape on it in which you can remove it easily. So get a really skinny cafe rod, because the finials on the end are really small, and it can comfortably hang over this. So you want to make your sleeve short enough so that the hook will come out to grab your rod, okay? So that's how you would do it. So if you want a floating quilt or one with a decorative curtain rod. So let me show you how to prepare the sleeve to put it on. Once you've got it cut out, you're going to fold over the edge, and go to your ironing board to do this step. Fold the edge over 1/4 of an inch, press it with your iron. Then fold it over again and press it with your iron. Do this at both ends of the sleeve. Then, at your sewing machine, go ahead and stitch right along that fold line there. Do that at both ends. Then on one edge, on one of the other edges, do the same thing. Fold it over 1/4 of an inch and press, fold it over 1/4 of an inch and press, and then stitch along that edge. So you've got 3 sides stitched on. Okay, then if you'll notice here, on the front side, I've got the binding on already. So go ahead and do that process. Now, if you don't know how to do binding, then you need to stop, watch a video that'll show you how to put binding on. So click on that link in the upper right hand corner and it goes into detail instructions on how to do quilt binding. Right now I'm assuming you know how to do that. So go ahead and have your binding stitched on the front. Then take your sleeve that you've just stitched and center it on the back, wherever you want it to be. Then go ahead and pin it up there. So you've got the raw edge of the sleeve at the top raw edge of the quilt. Then go ahead and fold your binding. Oh, excuse me, I skipped a step. Then once you've got it pinned on, sorry about that, go to the front and stitch over that same stitch line that you did to put the binding on. So now it's incorporated into that seam, okay? Now you're going to fold the binding over to the back. If you've never watched my videos before, and I do my binding a little differently than a lot of quilters, so I'll quickly go over what I do. I take the folded edge of the binding and I bring it past the stitch line that it's stitched on with. Bring it past that edge and then I pin it down. So up here at the top, you're going to fold it over the stitch line and then place pins in this manner, like this, on the back all the way across. Then flip it over to the front and you're going to do stitch in the ditch. That's where this dark purple and this light violet come together. You're not going to stitch on the binding, but you're going to stitch right next to it, right in that ditch. Stitch it all the way across. Now that you have your sleeve stitched on at the top, you need to stitch down this lower edge here. Now you don't want to do it with a sewing machine because you don't want to stitch through your quilt all the way to the front because you're going to see it. So you're going to need to do a hand stitch across this lower edge. So use a single strand of thread and a needle. Put a knot at the end of your thread. Then take your needle and over in this first corner here, you're going to go underneath and stick your needle in there. Now you can see my knot. So you're going to go through there, pull your needle all the way through and pull the thread all the way through, as you can see that I've already done right here. Then you want to go directly below onto the fabric that's on the back of your project and go in there again and again catch that lower edge. Pull it through one more time, the needle and the thread. You want to secure this corner so that it doesn't come undone. Then you're going to continue across doing this stitch. So let me come over here. So you've just pulled your needle out and thread right here on the edge. Then go directly below and catch the fabric on the back of your project. Slide the needle over about 1/8 of an inch. Catch the lower edge of the sleeve and pull it all the way through. And I'm going to do it one more time. So you're going to keep doing this stitch. Go below, slide it through, catch that lower edge, and pull it through. Now you're going to go all the way across. So when you get here to your last corner, do a few stitches in place to secure that corner. Now let's say you've got a quilt in which you've got the binding on and you want to put a sleeve on it, but you don't want to take the sleeve off. So here's a suggestion. Take your sleeve and finish all 4 edges by folding it over and then stitching it. Then put it face down on the back of your quilt, and you see the stitch line there where my binding is stitched on. You're going to place your sleeve slightly above that line. Okay, go ahead, pin it down like this, and then turn it over to the front and stitch in the ditch all the way across. So that's how you can put a sleeve on after you've already completed your quilt. Okay, well, I hope you decide to hang a quilt up on the wall. I've got a lot of them that I've made over the years. They add a lot of warmth to a space. They look great over a headboard in a bedroom, and really they look wonderful also over a sofa in a family room or living room. Now, to keep informed on all my future videos, click on one of my subscribe buttons. There's one in the upper left-hand corner. It's a picture of my face, a little round picture. And then in the lower right-hand corner is a red one that says subscribe. Click on either one of those. YouTube will prompt you for your email address. Enter that information, and the next time I have a new video, YouTube sends you an email with a big button on the center. I'm Cheryl, and I'm really glad you came to my sewing room, and I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.